Welcome to Brainworms and Tangents. My name's Carissa,
And I'm Pamela.
and we're two 20-somethings with ADHD on the quest to chase our impulsive ideas we can't shake. This is a self-growth podcast all about becoming who you want to be, one brainworm at a time.
So, Carissa, I hear you have a brainworm.
Yes, we have been exploring the world of journaling and all the benefits that it can have for self-growth. I even have my journal here today. So
I do as well.
Amazing. I think there's so many misconceptions about journaling. And I think that's partly why we wanted to do the podcast, as like we both have journals, we both journal. Maybe I don't journal as frequently as I would like to, but I do think it is such a good tool that more people should take advantage of. What are your thoughts on journaling?
Yeah, I don't feel like I have ever journaled consistently. And I think something that's been really interesting through doing research for this episode is finding out about all the different types of journaling and the different purposes for journaling. And I realized that I maybe didn't have a purpose in mind, and that's why I've kind of been stuck with it. So I'm excited to dive into what exists in journaling beyond the classic, like daily, like Dear Diary style journaling, because
Yeah.
that's kind of where I feel like I've been stuck in.
Absolutely. I think there is such a narrow mind when it comes to journaling. When the rule is there is no rules. It is like it is yours. You can do whatever you want with it. And it's really what you want to get out of it. So you have to put in what you want, but it's also not going to be I journaled one time and I'm changed and healed overnight. I think it is a continuous process, like you said. I think consistency is like one of the hardest things that I've struggled with when I've tried to journal. But it's really all about what you make it.
I was researching, I was finding like different purposes. So I jotted down a lot of different purposes for journaling. So there is understanding emotions, clarifying decisions, reducing stress, improving relationships, tracking growth, process grief and trauma, accessing creativity, preserving memories, identifying patterns. And obviously, this is just a short list. Really, the purpose can be whatever you want it to be. But that was really interesting for me because I think ever since I was little, my idea of journaling was this is going to be a memoir when I'm famous. And that has never been super helpful for
Mhm.
me because I wasn't getting anything out of it, because I was always writing for an audience, even if that
Mhm.
audience isn't like my many fans when I'm famous. Like that audience sometimes was just my future self.
Yeah.
And that was really restricting for me because I wasn't being honest. I wasn't truly exploring my emotions because I was still writing for an audience.
Mhm.
And something that I wrote down when I was doing my research is like something big about journaling is letting go of perfectionism. And I think
Absolutely.
that's where I have always really been stuck on, is the idea that my journal has to be perfect, that it's written for an audience of myself or others,
Mm.
and that just isn't productive.
Yeah, I think journal is supposed to be freeing, and it's supposed to be this like loosely structured thing. But when you have all these constraints, you're not going to be writing with that mindset. I do think often though, like if someone finds my journals, what are they gonna think? So I try to make it cool sometimes and add some fun things that I'm doing. But I do think it is hard even when that audience is your future self. I don't know
Mhm.
about you, but like I often like go back and reread parts of my journal, and it's been so fascinating to like see certain patterns of things that I continuously say sometimes from like year to year, or things that I kind of forgot that I've like went through. And I think partly is because I process them in a journal. So in some way it is fun to just have a collection of like these are my thoughts and my emotions. It's not like reading a book. It is like these things happen to me. And it's wild that even though like I experienced them and wrote them down, how disconnected you can feel and like kind of just forget. So I think in some ways it is really fun to have because it's all of my memories.
Yeah.
So it's so fascinating.
I really like that piece of rereading it because it's the idea of continuing to process what you've written. And
Hmm.
that's a way of tracking your growth is seeing where you've come from. I think I have never had that benefit because like I said, I've never been consistent enough. Like my entries are literally like once a year in like the
Hmm.
randomest of times. So
Yeah.
I've never like actually journaled.
I think the mindset that people have, like you mentioned, the whole like Dear Diary mindset, and it's just, oh, I'm just writing. But there was a lot of things. I think we've mentioned like Andrew Huberman on the podcast before, maybe in like the Huberman method. He's the one that's like, wake up, you don't drink caffeine, you drink like water with salt, and you get sun exposure in a cold shower. Anyway, he has like a very long podcast about journaling and like the most effective journal methods. But in that realm of things, so I don't know if this was to like appeal to maybe the fitness bros of things, but they describe journaling as a like exercise and workout for your brain, like a way to continuously exercise your like muscles to like practice emotional regulation. And if you don't continuously work at that, your brain isn't getting the workout that it needs. And I thought that was like a very fun take because I think it's so true. I think there's so many things in life we have to practice, and journaling is one of them. And if you treat it more so like my brain needs to like have its workout, like you can't really see what's going on, but you can feel what's happening in your head. So even though
Yeah.
like it's a different kind of thing. So I thought that was very fun because I do, and it's funny because I equate my consistency with journaling like the gym. Like I both don't like going or doing both, but after I do it, I'm like, wait, this wasn't so bad, or I do feel a lot better after doing this thing. I think it's kind of just that like you build it up in your head so much, you're like, you just have to go. Like, no, there are no rules for going to the gym. There are no rules for journaling. You just have to show up and do something, and you'll be like, oh, okay, that was cool.
Yeah, that resonates a lot with me because even like talking about this, like I'm getting frustrated that it hasn't been easy for me, that I haven't been
Hmm.
successful with it, that
Yeah.
like I want it to be the romanticized thing that people talk about, like, oh, I sit with my journal under a tree and I just process my emotions and I have this
Hmm.
beautiful diary. And that just hasn't been it for me. Like, I get frustrated that my thoughts go faster than my pen can write. Like, I get
Yes.
frustrated that, like, I can't say things exactly the way that I want them, or I have all these thoughts. And then when it comes to putting pen to paper, it doesn't like come out. But, like, you're right. It's a similar frustration of like going to the gym, of like, you think it's going to be this one way and then you do it. And it's like, well, I'm not good at this yet and
Hmm.
it's just not fun. So that's such an interesting way to put it.
Hmm. And I think journaling is also about meeting where you are. I think a lot of people were talking about that with like ADHD specifically, like with the consistency piece. And I think a part of it is that perfectionism. Like you don't know where to start, you don't know what to do. And there are so many like prompts that people have. There are so many apps that give you like journal prompts every day. I know there's so many guided journals, like gratitude journals and the 5 minute journal and things like that that are supposed to help you get over that hump and work on that consistency piece. But it is frustrating because I have friends that have like so many journals. Like one journal is like, oh, this was just October through December of 2015. I'm like, oh, like this has been the only journal I've had since I started journaling in 2020. And it's such like the thing that I keep saying in my entries. I'm like, oh, sure, journal more. Like, oh, I can't believe I haven't journaled yet this month. That's crazy. um, but it's interesting. And I'm like, what's the difference? Why can't I write? Like, why is my whole bookshelf not all of my journals of like my life? So it's an art, if you will, but
Yeah.
it's a lot of
It's
internal pressure.
it's funny. just you mentioning that you started your journal in 2020. I definitely had a thought in 2020 because we were in college and COVID had hit, and I had
Mhm.
the thought of I should start journaling because this is going to be something that I'm going to want to look back on, like all the
Mhm.
emotions that I was having. Like we thought the world was ending.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't write things down. And it's just
Yeah.
frustrating. I wish that I had that, but that makes me
Mhm.
feel better that you literally only have one journal for the
Mhm.
past 6 years.
Yeah, and that's crazy. And I've finally broken the halfway mark. I'm over here. But
Yeah.
still, it's it's so weird when I can hold the pages. I'm like, "This was 2021." I'm like,
Mhm.
"Weird." So it is very interesting, but I don't even talk about COVID a whole lot. So maybe I just because I didn't start, I don't think I yeah, that's so funny though. The my, like, kickoff of writing my journal was when I started to go to therapy for the first time. In my head, I was like, "Since I'm going to therapy, I might as well start journaling." But it was, like, a nice way to process the things that I was, like, learning in therapy and to just, like, keep track of what my experience was and how I was feeling throughout the process. So for me, like, this life change of starting this thing, I was like, "Well, I might as well go to Walmart and buy a journal and write things down." Like, if I was taking this big step that therapy was in my head at the time, I guess I'll start journaling. But I
Yeah,
did have, like, diaries as a kid. I have so many at home with
really.
the little lock and key and things like that, and, like, the digital, like, ones that I definitely can't open because I do not know what my, like, little password was, but it's been something I've been doing for a while, but I think we lose it maybe in some different years.
Yeah, I've also had the idea of pairing therapy with journaling, but kind of for a different reason. I found, and I don't know if this has to do with ADHD and maybe like emotional impulsivity and just like state dependent memory, but I've found that I'll show up to my therapy appointment and I'll be like, I have nothing to talk about. Like, nothing really happened, whatever.
Mhm,
And that won't necessarily be true. I will
mhm,
maybe have had like a big emotional reaction to something or something significant had happened to me. But it's hard for me to access my feelings once the moment has passed
mhm.
if I'm not in that same state.
Yeah.
And I And I feel like that is something with ADHD where you have the really intense, like, emotions in the moment, but then once it passes, you kind of forget it.
Yeah.
But if that emotion is triggered again, then I'm back at the heightened
Mhm,
emotion again, right? So I still wanna process it, but I'm not going to feel that if I'm in a different state, if I'm in therapy, right? Because
mhm,
the thing has passed. So I've wanted to start journaling to process things and be able to access those feelings during my therapy appointments to be able to look back on it. But then I've had trouble because it's kind of the same thing of if I'm having a reaction to something, there's something that I want to process in the moment. I don't have a journal with me to write it down, or if it's maybe like a confrontation with a person or something, I like am not going to take out my journal and write about it. So I was
yeah.
researching different like ADHD friendly methods for journaling, and a lot of them come back to something digital, right? Like pulling out your phone and typing it in the moment so you
Mhm,
don't like lose the memory of what happened. But I really like the pen to paper. Like I really wanted that. So then I was thinking about maybe having something really tiny that I could have with me all the time. Or I don't know, maybe like a really, maybe like loose leaf paper that I could keep with me and then add that into a
yeah.
journal so I can always have it. But I'm kind of struggling with I want to be able to process things in the moment. Like that's what I've
Mhm,
identified as my purpose. But then just struggle of the impracticality of having something to write with all the time, but not wanting to do something digital.
I totally understand that. One time I have used my like notes app because I was somewhere, I didn't have a journal, and I was like, and it's funny because I was like in a public setting. I'm like, no one knows I'm journaling. Look, I'm just texting a really long paragraph to like someone. And it was very nice because it was just right there. And I was like, cool, I can do this. It's great. I've also done like a video recording one time because I think what you said, like we both talk really fast and it can get very lost in what we're saying. And writing that down and having to like process and then write can be too much. So there was like one time I think I have a maybe like two or three just like I don't know 45-minute long videos of me just like yapping. And then that was it. I was like, okay, that was nice. And that was it. And like I know like voice memos or even just like recording things and being able to like talk even if like and you're by yourself not with another person. I think there are other ways to get the same benefits that don't always include pen to paper. And that could be one of the things where it's like you have this idea in your head, a journal is a journal, and you could be just restricting yourself when maybe it isn't the worst thing to just type it out if you're getting the same benefits. And I also, like, I think there's one or two pieces of random paper that I had that I just was like, well, I don't know what to do with this. I'll just stick it in my journal. I didn't bring it with me at the time when I needed to write something down. But I do think there's so many ways, whether that's digital, video journaling, or pen to paper, that you can still like get the same effect. But people do have different journals for different things. I've seen they're like, this is my daily, fits in my pocket, small little journal. But people use that for like lists and note taking, maybe not so much like processing long things.
I saw a creator who basically they had a pocket notebook and they wrote down like just a brain dump of everything that they
Mhm.
thought. And then at the end of the day, they sat down with it and they processed their journal. So it would
Mm.
be, okay, this is an idea for my social media ideas notebook and
Mhm.
then transferred it over there. This is an idea for my cookbook. This goes there. It would be things that they saw like on Instagram, for example, and wanted to go back to. So, oh, this is something I need to add to my like movies I want to watch. And that was really interesting because they talked about it as like a replacement for their phone of reaching for the notebook instead of reaching for their phone to write something down, to Google something. So, a way to stay present in the moment rather than taking their attention away.
Do you remember? I guess now it's only been like a little over a year when TikTok got like banned and shut down for like 72 hours and everyone was panicking.
I remember that.
There was a lot of people that were going through like their saves on TikTok and writing them in a journal. And they were like, this journal is my TikTok. And they were all the recipes they like had saved, all of the places they wanted to travel, and all of the movies they wanted to watch and books they wanted to read and albums. So it was just like a collection of everything. But we were so worried that we were losing this platform that we had like had so many likes and saves. And I even like was like, oh my god, I have to download everything. And then there was no storage on my computer. And I was like, how am I gonna forget all these lovely things? But it's such a interesting thing nowadays with social media where I can just save a post. And with ADHD, it is out of sight, out of mind. How often am I going back to my saves or my like
Yeah.
reposts or my favorites and actually being like, oh yeah, I did want to make this soup, or oh my gosh, yeah, I did want to read this book, if it is gone forever. So I think either like implementing some sort of thing where you are going through those things and actually writing them down, putting them somewhere else that you're more likely to see, or just doing the things. Like you see something on TikTok, okay, I'm gonna make this soup right now. I'm not gonna save it. But I think we do like push things away. So being able to like give it a second chance and then actually process it, I think you're more likely to put it to action.
Yeah. Ironically, that is kind of how I approach admin at work is through journaling in a way
Mhm.
where I use a Kindle Scribe, so it's digital, but kind of, still the pen to paper type feel.
Mhm.
But I do just brain dump everything that I'm thinking, to dos, things that people ask of me. And I just have a really long, messy list. But then I'll process that by either adding it to like my daily to do list or, this needs to go in ideas for this committee and moving it to places where it needs to go.
Mhm.
And it's interesting. It's a good way for me to process things at work, but I haven't really applied that same method to my daily life, probably because I don't have a Kindle in front of me all the time. It's
Yeah.
different with like a desk job versus
Yeah.
being just life.
Yeah.
Uh, it for me, it's really just not having something near me all the time where I can write things down.
Hmm. I think part of that goes to your attachment of it wanting to be pen to paper.
I just want it to be pen to paper.
Yeah, 'cause I know people like will journal on like Notion and they'll have like different things or different lists. And like, yeah, you would have your phone with you more likely than a piece of paper. But it is hard. I think if you have an idea of what you want something to be and you can't always execute it, you're less likely to do it.
Yeah, but my phone is so distracting. It's
Hmm.
not like I'm successful on my phone. It doesn't work
Yeah.
on my phone either.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess you got to get a pocket notebook, which I think
Yes.
that was like the next thing I wanted to talk about was like the overconsumption when it comes to journaling because there's so many, and I am part of the problem. I have so many pens that I've like accumulated versus like actually spending, but I hold on to them because I like stationery. But there's so many notebooks that cost so much money, so many pens. There are so many like I said, like the guided and structured journaling that like the world of journaling is crazy. Like people have 5 journals for like daily use and they all have different purposes and different things. And maybe that works with their brain. I think that is like fine. I think there's like a different limit, but this is like the reason I stopped buying planners for myself because every year I'd buy a planner. I'd like maybe put everything in it, like all my assignments for school and whatnot, all birthdays, and then I would never touch it again. And it was not helpful. And I told myself, I said, Carissa, you were never allowed to buy a planner ever again because it doesn't work. And it's okay that it doesn't work. Stop trying to make it work because you're just spending money.
I had a similar moment where I was like, when we were going to do our trial run journaling for this episode, I was like, oh, I have this random notebook in a drawer. Like, I don't need to go buy a new one. Like,
Hmm.
let's use what I have. I pick it up. I'm like, okay, yeah, just a regular, plain, whatever. Flip it over. It's a moleskin. It's a moleskin notebook that I just
Yeah.
had
That's what this one is.
in which I was so frustrated with myself because I had spent money on like this nice notebook and it was
Yeah.
just sitting in a drawer completely unused. And I don't know if I
Yeah.
was in the moment saving it for like the perfect day or whatever, but
Yeah.
it's just if it's not being used, like I definitely bought this over 5 years ago because I don't
Hmm.
remember. And that is overconsumption, is buying something without a purpose, letting it sit
Hmm.
there. And even once, like I wrote in it and then I realized it was a moleskin and part of me was like, oh, I should have saved it for something more special. But
Yeah.
the reality is if it's not being used, then it has no purpose. Like
Hmm.
it is better to use it imperfectly than not at all.
Yeah. 1,000%. So the one I like use all the time is just from Walmart. It is a random Walmart journal, the Exceed brand. My friend got me a moleskin for my birthday. It sat untouched for I think over a year because I didn't want to. I was like, oh, it's pretty and it's green. I don't want to like ruin it. I like was like, why? First off, why does it cost so much? It looks it. I wouldn't know the difference between my Walmart one and this one, but yeah, it was like a weird. I don't want to ruin it, or I don't
Yeah.
want to like waste it. And I'm like, well, so it's become my podcast, my notebook of like creative ideas versus just my like journaling one.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just so many things that lay around. But I was talking to a friend about just journaling and we got on the topic of planners and I think people have made like ADHD friendly planners that are like undated, that don't have anything. So like you're not wasting pages when you decide to come back to it. And I was talking about how I use more like dry erase, like calendars and things versus physical calendars, just because there's a lot of, I don't know if I'm going to get to it every day. So I think that's maybe also like with like the 5 minute journal, which I don't have because I was like, I can make this myself. I don't need a journal to tell to those things. But it is nice that you get to look back and see how frequently you go through things. And I always date when I write in my journal because I like to see the dates in the things. That's how I start every journal. I put the date and the time that I'm writing. I just think it's fascinating to look back on. But there are so many things I think that work better for neurotypical people where I'm like, hey, it's okay if I never own a planner and that's fine. Or a calendar. I don't need to spend money on these things just because everyone has them. I can find better ways. Or people have just made their own because they're like, this doesn't work for me. How can I make it work for me?
Yeah.
I don't know what the year thing is, but I probably could use one of my 2017 planners in a few years when the dates line back up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
What were some of the types of journaling that you came across?
Something that I found was prompts, which you talked a little about, and just a lot of ideas of different prompts that you can do. So, for example, like unsent letters or letters to
Mm-hmm.
your future self. I saw a really interesting one of a dialogue of, for example,
Mm-hmm.
between myself and fear. So, having that inner dialogue to process something and see what is left unsaid, I thought was really interesting. Um, it reminded me of bullet journaling. Have you
Mm-hmm.
ever attempted bullet journaling?
Yes. Yes, I have.
It was such a trend, I feel like, when we were in high school. And I
Mm-hmm.
have this really distinct memory of me doing my bullet journal layout as doing my weekly spread with my to
Mm-hmm.
dos. And this girl who was not very kind, who was sitting across from me in school, looked at me and she was like, you can buy those made. You don't have to make a planner. And I was like, first of all, clearly you're not on Tumblr seeing
Yeah, you
all of
don't
the
get it.
aesthetic bullet journal. Um, and that lasted days. It did not last
Yeah.
very long
Yeah.
because that was something that I was so caught up in making the spread really pretty and
Mm-hmm.
setting it up so nicely that I never actually used it.
Yep. You spend more time doing the journal than you actually
Yeah.
do
Yeah. Something that I found that I think really works with ADHD is doing lists.
Mhm.
So instead of having to focus on saying things exactly right or writing all of the words that you're thinking is just bullets. So 100 wants, 100 goals,
Mhm.
things that happened to me today. And you can kind of fill in the blanks and maybe process things from there, but just getting things on paper
Yeah.
might be helpful.
Mhm. Yeah, in a different way of list, I've also done kind of brain mapping of sorts, but it's just different list of I have just things that make me happy, and it was kind of just different webs of different things. And I think it's fun to look back on at different points in time of being oh, the different people in my life. I think I had different things of calling so and so, or going to this place. But I think it's fun to remind yourself of the things that you like to do, so that it could be a great list option of just things to get you out of a funk, or just things that you
Yeah.
enjoy, and then list them off. Just I think sometimes people can forget their hobbies and things that bring them joy when they're so down. So to have a
Mhm.
page you can go back on and be like, "Oh, you're right. I should just watch a movie or go for a walk," or just little things that I think can be very impactful when you actually need them.
Something else I saw was dream journals, which is
Mm,
a total different type of journal that I forgot existed. Um,
yeah,
and I think that's super interesting. I dream a lot. I don't know about
mhm,
you,
all the
but
time.
that could be really interesting to process separately of
Mhm.
patterns in your dreams and what that has to do with your waking life.
For a short period of time, I was dreaming really vividly for a week. So I would wake up as soon as my dream was over and I would go to my phone and I would put it in my notes app. I put the date and I'd a brief synopsis of what I remember. So I do think it's wild how later in the day you'll just forget entirely what happened. Or something will happen in the day and be like, you were in my dream. What? And but yeah, dream journal is something I would definitely consider and just putting it by your bed all times. It's there. You can quickly jot things down.
Also seen this next type of journaling in parts of like a bullet journal, but a mood tracker. So,
Mhm.
specifically to see the ups and downs of your mood, or maybe what seasons you tend to feel certain ways, or align with events. That's something really interesting that my therapist has mentioned to me is the idea of the body keeps the score is sometimes you
Mhm.
don't realize that you are having certain feelings or reactions around the same times of year, even though you might not consciously remember why.
Yeah.
Sometimes people talk about that of, dates that people have passed, even if
Mhm.
they don't consciously think about it, or
Mhm.
dates that something traumatic has happened to them, they will still have some reaction. So, being able to track moods over time to find those patterns for yourself.
I think that's one of the other things of, like, habit tracking, mood tracking. I think I vividly remember making a fun spread for, like, I don't know, October. It was, like, all, like, leaf theme and different, like, oranges and browns. I think I tracked for, like, 4 days, then I then it was it. But I do think that would be really fun to look back on. And I think another piece you could then pull from, the tracker, okay, let's talk about why October 12th was so significant. Or like it's good to see the highs and the lows, especially when you've had like a lot of maybe consistent lows. You can feel like you've been stuck in that point for a time, but to look back and be like, oh, never mind. Last Monday I was, 5 stars. But yeah, those are like, I think not things I've been consistent with, but I think that's why there's so many different types of journaling.
The last type of journaling that I was really interested in was called commonplace journaling. And that kind of brings me into my trial run of journaling in the
Mm,
past couple weeks. So,
mhm,
if you haven't seen it, I feel like it's gaining popularity on social media, if not just my social media and my algorithm has been showing it to me. But commonplace journaling is basically just using it as a catch all for everything. And this kind of spoke to me because I wanted to start with something easy because, like I said, it's just been tough for me to get into journaling. So I thought I would just start with let's put all the thoughts that I have swirling around in my head on paper and then we'll sort it out because I was really getting stuck with whatever I need to write down needs to be meaningful, and that's
mhm.
kind of the opposite of a commonplace journal is a place to put grocery lists, like to-do lists, like to do math in the margins. So that is what I started with. And like I said, I was like, okay, I'll just use whatever notebook for that because that
Mhm,
doesn't even matter. I just started doing the front page, I started doing a just gratitude list. So whenever I thought of something that I was grateful for, I just
mhm,
jot it down there because that is something another purpose that I was wanting through journaling is just to be more grateful and practice more gratitude. So I did that. And then what I tended to do from there was each week I just divided my page into 8 squares. And I
mm,
just did Monday through Sunday. And then I had an extra box that I just threw random to dos. And that was really helping me plan out my days and feel like I was getting everything done that I needed to. And maybe this is something that I would just keep in my head of things that I needed to do this week, but it was helpful to just throw it in there. So
mhm,
it has been really interesting, and I was just writing down everything, like I made a grocery list and stuff I needed to pack. I also at one point was considering applying for a job, so I just started throwing down like things that I would put in a cover letter, or
mhm.
like what are my unique qualities, or
Yeah.
what questions do I have about this job. And I didn't end up applying for it, but it was the most prepared I've ever felt because taking the questions that I was having in thinking about a job and writing them down so they could actually be questions I asked during an interview,
Mhm.
it took the thoughts that I was having and it actually made it something practical and useful.
Yeah, I think like having like a pre-step because I think we all had that experience like when you sit down to write like a paper and like a rough draft and you can't. And that's why it's like, okay, yeah, well, if you let's map out these things and the themes and like whatever. So like by you doing that pre-work in a space that feels like, oh, this is just my journal. This isn't actually like for my cover, like this is just my journal. Then you're like, oh, I can pull from this when it's actually time, and the task of the cover letter doesn't feel so daunting because you've already gone through the pre-steps in your head. to get there.
How was your journaling trial? What was your approach?
My same approach that I do with my journal, which I always usually either write when I'm feeling, but I was forcing myself more so because, again, we wanted to be consistent to be able to talk about the episode. But I do think I have like a longer history of journaling to be able to pull from. But I kind of write different things to myself sometimes. I think you said like kind of the audience. Like I always write with myself in mind. I usually just use I, like I'm doing this. I never use we unless I'm being like cheesy and like me and my journal self are like the same. Um, but I used it, there were sometimes I used it to help just like process what was going on, things I was feeling, or if there was nothing going on, I think I would just start writing and then I'd be like, oh yeah, this thing happened last week. Let's talk about it. And then I decided I was using my like podcast journal as well because I think we have a lot of like ongoing things going on with our episodes. So it was fun to be like, oh, I am having feelings about something we're doing. Let me jot these down. So when it comes time to record, I'm not like, oh, yeah, it was fine. I don't really remember. So I think, and in my head, I'm like, wait, that is also journaling. So it was
Yeah.
fun to be able to like kind of write lists of just like how I'm feeling. And even though this lives in like a separate journal, like they still are cohesive together. But I take my journal with me everywhere I go. And I talk about that a lot in my journal because it's so funny how few entries I have when it is in every bag I pack, just in case I want to write something. But I think the consistency piece is also important. So, like, my journal stays by my bed every night, usually, if it's not in like a bag or something. And it's supposed to be, I can see it, it's right there, I can grab it and start writing things down. But yeah, I didn't really have any, I guess, plan going into it rather than just like I'm just gonna write and see where things go. I do think there was like I have an entry that's just called good things and I hadn't written in a while. So I just listed out all the good things that happened so I wouldn't forget them. And I filled like the whole page and I could have written more, but it was just fun to be like rather than like I kind of like recap things that are going on or I use it to process like maybe things I'm currently feeling. But in this instance, writing a list was so much easier than going through here's what you missed the past 6 months.
Yeah.
So but I always like sign it like from myself. So it's always love Carissa or see you later Carissa. And it's just like a fun I kind of take the approach of like a letter to myself almost. I think I do those separately and that was like one of the other there was like two other like types of journaling that I wrote down which was like manifestation journaling and a like letter to yourself. I do those kind of separately. I think one time I did like a dear universe or like in like doing the where you write from the future. And I didn't realize it at first when I went back and reread it. I was like, what am I talking about? I don't have these things. And I was like, oh. And it was weird because some of the things came true. So I think that was fun. But if you're not familiar with like manifestation journaling, you were writing as if these things have already happened. So some of the things were like, I've been going to the gym very consistent the past 2 weeks. I've been feeling great. Or I just got a new dog, like different things like that. So it's just fun to let yourself be creative in that sense and like think about your goals differently. And then the other one is just letter to myself. So I've done that plenty of times, not during this trial period, but I wrote a letter on January 1st for December 31st, 2026, Carissa to open. And those are fun because I just talk about what things I'm like currently worried about, who my friends are, what's going on. I've done that since like eighth grade. I wrote a letter like eighth grade for like senior year myself. And I don't know. I think I love the cheesiness that comes with journaling. Like I'm not, again, not writing to impress anyone, but it is like whatever I need in that moment.
You have really mastered the just do it for whatever you need. Like you lean into the
Yeah.
cheesiness of it.
Mhm.
I struggle with that because I just want it to be great. Even like, so my mother-in-law, who is a big fan of this podcast, shout out Lola, she gave me the cutest pink moleskin notebook and it's the perfect size. It's like the size of my phone
Mm.
and I want to use it, but I like cannot. I put it, it's like on my nightstand. Like I look at it all the time but I
Mhm.
can't bring myself to use it because I'm like, I have to write something perfect in this notebook. And I just can't get past that of
Yeah.
writing down goals, but then they don't come true and then having to look back
Mhm.
on them or
Yeah.
feeling some type of way and then looking back and being like, "Oh, it would be dumb to feel that way." I
Yeah.
just for some reason, writing things down feels so finite to me
Mhm.
that I'm sometimes if I keep it in my head, it feels like it's not real, but writing it
Yeah.
down feels real. But that's how
Mhm.
you process things. That's
Yeah.
how you like and that's how you turn like dreams into goals, into plans. And it's just scary to be vulnerable
Mhm.
in that way, even if it's
Mhm.
just with myself.
Yeah, I was gonna mention the vulnerability piece. There's been so many times where, I wrote something, the next time it's been, like, maybe 2 weeks or something, I've literally, like, laughed at myself in my journal. I was like, "Hey, what you said on that last page, super valid, but that was crazy." Oh, and it is, like, freeing, I think, to understand, like, yeah, these things that you have experienced at this point, they can still be valid and you can still have, like, learned and understand that if those were to happen today, you wouldn't have the same reaction. And I think that is, like, part of the growth. And probably because I journaled, I was like, "Okay, let's process this," and then you can move on from it after you've written about it. It is hard though. I sometimes forget what I put in this, and then when I reread it, I'm like, "Oh, ooh." It can be cringe, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I think you should use your pink one as, like, your dream journal. Keep it by your bed, write in it, but it is, like that is the hardest thing is breaking in a new journal, but you just got to. That's like when people are use, like, the fine china and, like I do the same thing when I, like, buy, like, face mask or, like, perfume. It's like, "Well, this is only for special occasion." Why? Wear it every day. Wear it to the grocery store. No one cares. Like, use the things that you have or else they're just, like, taking up space and they're for nothing. But journaling is a hard, like, hump to get over. But yeah, I definitely lean into the cheesiness of it. It's so fun. I add a little PS in case I forgot to write something before I signed off. Like, I don't know, it is like a fun thing to do.
So, what do you think you will take from our journaling experiment? Are you going to still try and be consistent? What do you think this is going to look like moving forward?
I think just leaning in. I think I kinda need to, like, Pavlov myself to if I'm experiencing, like, something outside of, like uh, actually, I think that's part of the problem. You can journal when you're experiencing, like, great happiness too. It doesn't always have to be the sad
Yeah.
things that are happening. It can be the boring days that are happening. So, I think maybe not forcing, like, every day, but I think knowing when I journal, I feel better is, like, my thing, so I can reach for my journal more, when these things are happening as, like, something to do to help myself get over what I'm feeling or just to process the good things that I'm feeling. Um, I think there's so many ways to journal, and I think, like, maybe exploring some I have a whole Pinterest page that is just prompts for journaling that I would like to dive more into, but I think just having fun with it. So my future with journaling, I think, is I know, like, we have our, like, summer reading program going on, so maybe using it to, like, go back to school with the, like, reading comprehension. "Okay, I read this book, let me write about it." And again, it's just for me. No one needs to know, like, if I have, like, a profound takeaway from a book, but I can still process it and not just, like, consume something and move on. So I like the podcast. I think I've used this as, like, an outlet, though, for some of these things that we're experiencing. But even I just do, like, a little pre-writing before to prepare and just to, like, how am I feeling about these things that are happening? So I will continue to carry this with me every place I go.
Are you
Um,
saying that the podcast itself is a journal?
I think so. I think in the same way, like, a YouTube vlog, like, you can look back and see your whole life. People are very vulnerable with the internet and random strangers because We think no one's going to listen to this. So it is freeing sometimes. I don't really know what's coming out of my mouth until I say it. And I'm like, well, there it is. How about for you? How are you going to? I mean, I think it's okay also if the answer is journaling just isn't for you. But I do think that there's, like, again, like the misconceptions. It doesn't have to be this finite thing, this one size fits all approach.
Yeah, I think I just need to do it consistently. So just writing down something, even if it's just like one sentence
Hmm.
every day, no matter what, because like you said, if you're not journaling during the good times and the bad times and the boring times, you're not seeing patterns. You're
Hmm.
not tracking the full extent of your life. Like it's not a realistic snapshot. And I think
Hmm.
it's helpful to see, like, sometimes I have in between days, and sometimes I have good days, and sometimes I have bad days, and
Hmm.
capturing that full range. And there's so much that can come from that. So for me, I think it's just going to be continuing to try and implement the practice. And hopefully, I'll move on from the commonplace journal. I think the commonplace journal um, has its purpose, and it's got, like, a mix of basically all journaling types right
Yeah,
now for
for
me,
sure.
but hopefully through just writing down whatever feels easiest for me in the moment, I can refine what types of things I like to write about
Hmm.
and go from there of honing in on what type of journaling is working best for me.
And like you mentioned, there is the type of that's like the one sentence a day journaling where
Mhm.
you could just date it out and even try with like the current month of like what is one sentence reflection of the day. And you have that list and you can go back to it, but you also have the all the empty pages that you can write in to unpack what you shared in that one day. And I think sometimes just opening it, you're more likely to continue writing than it just sitting there closed.
Yeah.
So,
Like I said, the creator who uses their journal in place of their phone, I think that might be a practice I want to start implementing of
mhm,
if I feel like using my phone, just open the journal and just write. That has been something that I have been practicing in our
mhm,
trial run is just even if I don't have anything to write about, just write down and even just starting with I don't have anything to write about, blah 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 blah. And then eventually like stuff comes
mhm.
out. But
Yeah.
I think just opening the notebook like you said and just writing.
I think it's gonna be fun to, like, revisit the journals, see where we're at maybe a year from now, and how we continue this practice and this exercise for our brain. But some of the things that we had talked about, I have, like, 3 movies that, like, heavily feature journaling as part of, like, the plot. So I wanted to see if you've seen all of them or not. But Mamma Mia is one that comes to mind.
Does it have journaling in it? Oh,
So
because
the
it
daughter finds her mom's journal, and
finds
that's
her journal.
the whole plot. So that's when I think about the things I'm writing. Is my future children gonna find it and see all the rendezvous that was happening in my life? So that's fun. Um, Unsent letters, thinking about to all the boys I loved before. Um,
Yeah.
the being vulnerable and then all of a sudden the letters send and these people know what you think about them. And then one of my favorite movies is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. But that one, the journaling is much more in the book. There are elements in the movie, but I recommend both of them. So if you want some fun
Well, these are not helping
movies,
me because these are cases of people finding journals and finding what people have written and plots unfolding due to that,
yeah,
and I just that is not gonna help my idea that I have to write for an audience and that I can't be vulnerable in my journaling.
no, you should still be vulnerable. And
Well,
I
not if my future daughter is going to open it, invite 3 strange men to her wedding, so
right, right, right. Well, you can burn them. Oh my gosh, the burn after reading journals. We didn't even talk about those. Do
oh
you
my
remember those?
gosh. Yes, and
He
okay, literally same thing. It's yeah, it was called
Burn this after
Burn This
reading,
Journal,
right?
burn or
Bur
yeah,
burn I never had one, but yeah, that those blew up. Or like rip this page out. Maybe that's what you should do with your pink journal. Rip the first page, throw it away, break it
yeah,
in.
I think you're right. Well, there's also Destroy This Book, which is different. It was
Yes.
more like
Mhm.
art.
Yeah.
but kind of the
Yeah.
same thing.
And then I think I have another thing that's like 500 writing prompts. I know there's like the same thing for drawing. Yeah. Wow. The world's just been pushing people to go
Yeah,
and
maybe I'll
journal.
get one with prompts. Well,
Mm-hmm.
really, I should just look them up instead of buying a book with
Yeah.
prompts. Like, I should just Google prompts and just, like, choose one every
Yeah.
day.
You can print it out. That way it's in your journal. Or then you can pick a random number every day. Pick
Yeah.
number.
Well,
something.
we didn't even talk about junk journaling
That's
of
that's what I was gonna bring up. I wonder if I'm not wondering. I think I know. The perfectionism aspect of junk journaling and journaling, I think they're definitely tied together.
I'm so behind on my junk journal because I've just been collecting junk and not actually, like, processing it and wanting to be perfect. But I've gotten to a point where I've accepted that I'm going to take, like, my 5 favorite things or events, and I'm just gonna make them, and I'm throwing all of the other junk away, because if I am not actively processing the junk and the
True.
ideas, then it's not useful. But I've also had the thought of, like, should I put journal entries in with my junk? Like, maybe I could even put it in envelopes and then stick it in there.
Mhm.
Just a different way to preserve memories.
Scrapbooking.
Yeah.
I do think it is both the creative, like the junk journaling and just like the art form. They're both art forms in different ways, but like that and like once you glue something down, it is there forever. And then once you write something down, it is there forever. Both sides of this, it's very interesting to see how you have the same struggles with both of things, even though they're technically different. But it's kind of that the permanent, like it is there forever. But yeah, it's not getting hung in the Louvre, you know. I think
You
knowing
don't
that.
know that. My journal can be hung in the Louvre. Down the back, but still the
Yeah,
Louvre.
still in the Louvre. Wow. So, thanks for listening to this episode of Brainworms and Tangents. If you enjoyed, please be sure to share with a friend and be sure you're following us on Substack, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Also, if you're joining us for the summer, we currently have our summer reading program going on. You can find all the information in all of our bios or in our last episode in the show notes. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.